Bobby Torres of Frightbox Recording here to show you how you could take control over your metal guitar tracks low end. How f***ing cool is this mug? So as you may know, low end is a major pain in the ass. Too much and things get muddy, too little and things sound weak. Especially when it comes to your guitar tracks. Nothing beats a nice full sounding guitar track with a nice full low end, right? Problem is that it's hard to keep under control. Every time there's palm muting happening, it makes the speakers jump, can conflict with the kick drum and the bass guitar, so what do? Generally, I found people take two approaches. Either they roll off a ton of low end, or they use a compressor on their guitar tracks to control the dynamic range. Now, compressing your guitar tracks would make sense. It does control the dynamic range, but the problem is that it becomes audible and the guitars kind of pump. This can be a desired effect if you want a specific character. Me personally, I like my guitars sounding nice and natural, especially in metal. Okay, so I have an audio sample here where I utilize my go-to approach to controlling low end on guitars. I'm gonna play it and then I'm gonna dissect piece by piece exactly how I achieved the result that I achieved within the sample. So check it out. So that sample was by my good friends in a band called At Rest. I will leave a link to their music within the video's description. To me, that's my ideal guitar sound for, super duper heavy production like this. You hear everything nice and clear, but the low end is still there. It's not like it's a thin sounding guitar sound. It's nice and full, but very controlled. And the way I achieve that is through multi-band compression. This technique is nothing new. It was made popular by a great audio engineer by the name of Andy Sneap. I've been utilizing it for well over 10 years at this point. I just wanted to demonstrate the way that I approach it because I feel like it's extremely straightforward and will save you a ton of futzing around with plugins and going crazy with processing on each individual track. Okay, so I have 4 rhythm guitar tracks. It's actually only 2 performances. On the left side, there's a 5150. On the right side, there's a 5150. On the left side, I'm also utilizing the DI track. It's blended in with the 5150. And on the right side, I'm doing the same thing. So again, it's only 2 performances, one left, one right, but they're 2 guitar sounds that are combined. Now, what most people would do is they would go in and just, process each individual track. And the problem with that is that it's just a lot of processing going on in your mix. It kind of overcomplicates things. The way that I approach it is I bus all of my rhythm guitars to a guitar submix. And that is where I am utilizing my multiband compression that's really controlling the low end. Now, if you're not familiar with multiband compression, the way it works is you can actually compress specific ranges of the frequency spectrum. So in this case, when it comes to controlling your guitar's low end, the area that really gets out of control is pretty much between 80 or 90 hertz all the way up to about 200 or 250 hertz. That's the palm muting range where, when there's palm muting, it really makes the low end kind of get out of control depending on your guitar sound, but it's very, very common. So instead of sticking a broadband compressor, just a regular compressor on my guitar tracks, and just compressing the whole thing, I only compress that range. And I simplify it even more by just doing it on the actual bus instead of doing it on the individual channels. Now in this case, my multiband compressor is compressing just from 90 hertz to about 200 hertz. That's it. So I'm gonna play the track pack with the plugin pulled up so you can see the gain reduction actually happening. Let's check it out. Yeah, so on the palm mutes, there's around 3 to 4 dB happening of gain reduction. Okay, so I'm gonna solo the guitar tracks and let's listen to what the multiband compressor is actually doing. I'm gonna play it first without the multiband compression. Let's check it out. Okay, that is without any compression at all. Let's check it out now with the multiband compressor. Now, the difference is not major. As a matter of fact, it's almost inaudible. You could hear that the low end is tightened up, but it did not destroy my guitar sound. The problem with the other techniques that I previously mentioned, going crazy with rolling off the low end on your rhythm guitar tracks or just using a regular compressor, is that the results really do change the fundamental guitar sound. The way that I prefer to work is to get the guitar sound right at the source and do as little as possible to it after the fact. So, that goes for EQ and compression. And when you use a broadband compressor, a regular compressor, you're gonna hear it. And also, if you're gonna, roll off up to 120 hertz, you're gonna hear that as well. I really want that low end nice and full, but I want it controlled. So that way it does not conflict with the bass or the kick drum. I want to mention one other thing. If you were paying close attention here, my DI tracks have a bunch of processing. This processing I do not ever apply to regular guitar sounds. I'm just blending in a second DI track to bring out the pick attack. That's why you see some extra compression and EQ and amp sim. That's just a secondary guitar tone just to reinforce the main guitar tone. Me personally, I never apply that kind of extreme processing to my main guitar tone, like from the actual tube amp or my main amp sim. Now, as you may know, if you have a guitar submix where you're processing your guitar left and guitar right, it's gonna be a stereo submix, right? So you would think that you would wanna load a stereo version of the plugin, but you do not. You wanna load a multi-mono version of the plugin. If you do not know the difference, let me explain it to you. So a stereo compressor is gonna react to both sides. So let's say there's some crazy palm muting happening on the left side. Whatever's happening in the compressor is gonna affect the other side as well. So if you load your plugin in multi-mono, it's almost as if it's two independent plugins, one on the left, one on the right, acting independent from one another. So for example, anything that's happening on the left side will have its own processing, and anything that's happening on the right side will have its own processing as well. So you end up with a way wider stereo image where the two sides are independent of one another. So the multiband compressor, even though it's loaded on my stereo track, again, let me just show you here, I have it loaded in multi-mono, not stereo or multi-channel. Big difference. Now, if you're wondering what this extra trim plugin is on my guitar bus, it's simply there for automation, just volume automation. It has no effect on the tone whatsoever. Now, multiband compression on guitar is pretty well known at this point, but I rarely see people mentioning using a multi-mono version of the plugins. It does make a difference, and it really helps keep the guitar sounding nice and wide because the two sides, again, are acting independent from one another. So I'm gonna play the track back again, and let's look at what's happening in the plugin. Let's check it out. So if you found this video helpful, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to click the little bell icon in order to be notified every time I upload one of my weekly videos on all things metal and rock production. You can both like and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Links are in the description below. And don't forget to download my free quick EQ guide that contains all my EQ settings that I always return to when starting a mix. There is a link below within this video's description. Until next time, happy mixing.